This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Bryant Peña. I always join the Vito podcast, the best podcast in the United States.
Today's Two Bad Hombres podcast is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Two Bad Hombres podcast listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. I don't get tired. Get it, get fly. I got 6.
And we are still not tired on this week's edition of Two Bad Hombres. I am Vito Jerome Churko alongside my sidekick and broadcast partner in fun, the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Charles McElroon. John, how are you doing?
Vito, an unbelievable experience. As I reflect back on our coverage at Little Caesars Arena, you and I had the privilege, the honor of covering the Hitachi College Basketball Showcase. And to look back at the videos, I've been going back, kind of reflecting on the coverage. And I was telling my wife, and after you came to my home for the first time, you met my daughters. We got a chance to hang out at the bar. I'm wondering, did you take it all in maybe the same way I did? And I'll set the scene here. We're a podcast network, okay? So a lot of people will say, what is a podcast? We still kind of, at this point in time, have to tell people what it is. What do we do? How often do we put it out? How is it different? You and I are at the bar, and I had a chance to tell somebody, hey, I do a podcast. And they're like, oh, is that the same thing like Mike Valenti does? And I'm like, yeah, very similar. It's a sports show, but it's broadcast on the internet. And so even despite our efforts to tell people what we do, it's still a brand new medium. And so it kind of hit me, maybe not the day because we were doing so much work and trying to watch the games and do the coverage, but it really hit me like Monday and Tuesday into our recordings. Wow, Adam and I started this project, really just two dudes spitting into a microphone, shooting the shit and trying to just to have a good time, right? And we took it from that all the way to the opportunity where you and I are bantering back and forth, trying to spit out and get the first question off to Tom Izzo, the head basketball coach of Michigan State University, a potential college basketball champion, a team that could win the NCAA tournament. And so to take it from there, it was just another moment for me that got me excited. I was super happy to be part of it with you. I thought that you and I did a great job. We had fun. We were able to provide coverage, and to take a podcast network and to be able to cover events that you want to and to do the fun things and put out videos and to cover teams that you're passionate about. I mean, you're a UDM alum. I'm a UDM alum, having received a master's degree there. I was a rare individual that got actually 2 degrees, one from Michigan State, one from Detroit Mercy. So for me to be there in that environment was super exciting, and I was happy to share it with you, and I thought we did a great job. It was a fun experience for me, at least.
Yeah, it was fun outside of watching Detroit Mercy get slammed and just shellacked by Michigan.
That was one of the big talking points was afterwards, people were asking, why don't they do this every year? Michigan and Detroit Mercy didn't draw. And that was surprising to me. I obviously didn't think that Detroit Mercy was going to fill the joint. Obviously, Oakland's Golden Grizz, their section was loud as hell when they got into the lead in the second game. And obviously the Izzone and several thousand Michigan State fans packed the place. I think during the event, they said it was a record in terms of a sporting event, in terms of the attendance. What was surprising to me was noon start, Michigan basketball fans really didn't support the cause, especially being in Detroit. So you really do get a sense, and it hits home. Michigan's a football school. They're not a basketball school. They didn't draw. And so if you were a fan of that event, Michigan might not be part of it because they didn't draw. State drew, Oakland drew. The other 2 teams, and that first game was a major dud.
And you know what? They said it was a sellout. Well, the first game, you can tell that Michigan fans are more football fans, like you said. And Detroit Mercy wasn't good enough to be on that floor at Little Caesars Arena this past Saturday. Not nearly good enough.
Right from the jump, they got taken advantage of, and most people kind of felt that way, but really what contributed to it was a lack of a vibe. One of Detroit Mercy's contributors, a key player, Jaleel Hogan, you've said it many times, he looked gassed. He only contributed, I think, less than 10 points. I think he had 4 points in his time, and he looked out of shape. And the defensive effort by Bacari Alexander's team, which he acknowledged needs some work, and really to start the game by both teams, was Brick City, man. It was tough, a tough watch. A lot of turnovers by Detroit Mercy. It was a tough watch early on in that contest. Both teams kind of were struggling on offense, but once Michigan kicked it into gear, they never let up. They squashed Detroit Mercy.
4 points in 19 minutes from Jaleel Hogan, the go-to guy last year, along with Corey Allen. Corey Allen still their consistent scorer pretty much. But you know what? Hogan is out of shape. He appeared gassed against Michigan. And you know Detroit Mercy isn't going to beat Michigan. Okay, we all know that. Anybody with a brain knew that going into Saturday's Hitachi College Basketball Showcase featuring a doubleheader. And Detroit Mercy, Michigan were the first game, MSU, Oakland, the second game. So we all knew it. I did, as a somewhat biased Detroit Mercy viewer, because I went there, got my undergraduate degree in communication studies from Detroit Mercy. But still, you knew going into it, Michigan is going to wipe the floor at least a little bit, win by 50 or 20. But to allow 90 points, as Detroit Mercy did, to lose by 30 points, to be down by 30 for most of that game as well, that's ridiculous. It's uncalled for. The defensive effort has to be picked up by Detroit Mercy. And honestly, Detroit Mercy has to be removed from the schedule for the Hitachi College Basketball Showcase. Because you can't have a showing like that in the first game and any of the games as part of this showcase moving forward. And if Detroit Mercy is going to continue to have a lackluster product, you can't have Detroit Mercy be featured as part of this showcase. You're going to have to scrap that first game, at least not feature Detroit Mercy, and find another team to play Michigan, or another two teams to play, because you didn't draw, as you said, as well in that first game, and you should have drew a little bit better. At least a little bit better. I know Michigan is more of a football school. Everybody loves Harbaugh, the khakis he wears, and worships him at the altar of Jim Harbaugh. But the thing is, you need a better showing than that at a brand spanking new venue, a state-of-the-art venue in Little Caesars Arena, and you get that lackluster of a crowd. I mean, at times, it was a dead zone there. You could have heard a pin drop. It was that darn silent for that first game featuring Detroit Mercy and Michigan. So you got to do something about that to improve the crowd, the liveliness as well of that first game, if you want to really make this showcase, this Hitachi College Basketball Showcase, a premier event year in and year out at Little Caesars Arena, Doc.
Well said, Vito. What was it like for you it was your first time at Little Caesars? How'd you take it in?
I took it in well. The only thing I really didn't care for was being by you the whole entire time, really sitting by you and having to do so. Luckily, we had Blair Glover there, who we had on last week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. But honestly, it was my first time being there. I swiped my LCA card, and I liked it. It's a grand venue, and we were in good seats. We had a great vantage point for watching the game. So for me, I took it all in. I enjoyed myself, and especially that second game, Kendrick Nunn, the transfer from Illinois, scoring 32. And man, he looked masterful at points in that MSU game. He took over and was the man. He wasn't missing. So that was fun to watch. And then seeing Greg Hampe in the post-game press conference, how entertaining was that? That was the most entertaining thing I've ever seen in a press conference from a head coach.
It was. I mean, he was very passionate. He said, look, we deserve to win this game. I really want Oakland to get on the map. People view us as a cute story, and one of the reasons why we don't maybe get the respect that we deserve is two parts. One, most people only care about, did your team make the NCAA tournament? And sometimes, a team like Oakland, who doesn't qualify every single year, people kind of overlook them as a cute story. And two, when they have had a chance to play Michigan State in a national contest, viewed by a lot of people, a national television audience, ESPNU, they come up short. 16 losses to Michigan State, and you could tell. And I understand that, because obviously as a podcast network, we want to be viewed with respect. And so if someone like, a major organization came to us and asked us to be part of their network, it would feel like the same thing. And so I definitely understand the struggle of a program like Oakland trying to, as best as they can, make a name for themselves. And that's what he did, really. He just really was passionate. He really was speaking on how important that game was, what it would have meant to the program had Oakland defeated Michigan State. It wasn't meant to be. This year, Miles Bridges, Ward, when the game got close, you saw the cream rise to the top. Michigan State has multiple offensive weapons, and so it's just, Michigan State is a program that's on the rise, and they're a team that many people think will be in the Final Four in the entire tournament. So it would have been a huge hill to climb for Oakland to win the game, but to keep it close, to keep it entertaining, to kind of put a little bit of fear into Michigan State, that's all you could have really asked for outside of a victory. What was it like for you kind of sitting in the press conference with Tom Izzo? Did you get that kind of aura of like, wow, college basketball royalty is right in front of us talking about his team? And for me, sitting there, I was just in awe because, wow, that's Tom Izzo. That's one of the best college coaches of all time, but he was so calm and he was just talking about, I want my team to be better. I want them to do a lot more than they showed versus Oakland. And he was just kind of calm, and he kind of joked around a little bit, talking about how all the reporters were kind of firing questions off at him.
I kept saying, coach, 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 and you made fun of me. You told me just fire off the question, then I finally did. But to be in the aura, amidst the aura, right, along with the other reporters of Tom Izzo, for the first time for us, you and I, you were starstruck, but we got off our questions. I think we did all right, and it was a great experience. Then my buddy Nick Schmiegel had to watch me. He's judging me as he's watching, too, in the press conference, and I think my question came up. Well, I don't know if it was the most eloquent statement or question I've ever asked a coach or player at a post-game press conference, but just to be there and to see the game before that to how great it was, and the ending with 6 minutes to go, I believe it was tied between MSU and OU, almost pulling off the upset for OU. Would have been the first time beating Michigan State in OU's program, the program history for Oakland. And you know what? By the way, too, Michigan State, the number one team in the nation in field goal percentage defense, and none still scored 32. And OU still as a team had that collectively good performance. You know what? Can't be made the argument that if his team is healthy, they are the top team, mid-major team that is, in the nation. And I believe they very well could be, and they look like, based on how they played against Michigan State, they are the best team in the Horizon League. Now, there hasn't been any Horizon League play yet, but you got to give OU that much, that based on their performance, they look like they're going to be a top-tier team in the Horizon League this year. I am going to say the number one team in the Horizon League too, Doc.
Yeah, amazing experience. I hope to have many more. Maybe you and I will get a chance to cover the NCAA regional that's going to take place at Little Caesars. Now, friend of the podcast, Perry Farrell, I'm excited to kind of dial him up as well because there was some news made regarding Bacari Alexander last week. Perry was the reporter who was able to kind of track down and kind of get more insight into why Bacari Alexander was suspended, head coach of Detroit Mercy. And we'll talk to him next, and we'll talk to him about journalism, his work at the Free Press, his transition from sports writing to becoming a news writer at the Free Press. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm going to dial him up right now.
And out joining me on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres is the Detroit Free Press's Perry Farrell, a guy that I like to call the big dog on campus over there at the Free Press. A mentor to me, you could say as well. Perry, let me welcome you. How are you doing as well right now?
I'm enjoying my vacation.
Ooh, vacation. Bringing that up.
My birthday is Friday, so wishing me happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday. We can do that as well here on Two Bad Hombres. And Perry, always a pleasure having you on. And amidst good news for you on the reporting scene, breaking a story about Bacari Alexander, who was suspended for 7 games. And you found out the reason why he was, and supposedly it was making a vulgar comment towards Detroit Mercy's Tariq Jones. And he supposedly told Jones to suck his genitalia during a November 6th practice. Now, how did you get this scoop, Perry?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I supported the hire of Coach Alexander. Have a lot of respect for him. Think he's a fine individual. And I thought it was a good hire for the program. What happened was Thursday, he was on a local radio show and said it was not a suspension. He left the program for a personal matter. And I think that kind of upset the family. So Prentice Mercer, the father, called me and said, I need to get some things straight. I'm ready to do a story, and here we go. So that's how I got the story. And, I had to, of course, contact the university to get their side of it. And Gary Lickman, the standard, we can't talk about it. It's a personnel matter, private school. And then after the story came out, they sent me another email saying that they knew about the incident, was deeply disappointed, that the athletic director and the head coach did apologize to the family. And that was it. But it's just the ugliness of the situation. I asked the father last night, I said, did he ask Coach something to get him mad? Or he said the situation was he was correcting Coach Alexander about something that happened in the Wayne State game. And after he made the correction of an incident during the game, that's when Coach Alexander told him to do what he told him to do. The family went to the athletic director and the president, and that's when Bacari was told not to be around the team for 7 games.
And, he made the vulgar gesture to grabbing that area, his private area. So it was demonstrative, and it wasn't cool. It was uncalled for, in so many words, too.
You just can't do that being a leader of young men. And, I've gotten some really stupid responses like, well, he needs to toughen up or lead a coach alone, let him coach. You just can't do that nowadays because of the sensitivity of the sexual harassment things we have going on. And you just can't tell a kid to do something like that, whether you're playing or whether you're being serious. It's just not that day and age where you can say that and get away with it. And I just thought the apology that should have been made to the family should have probably been in person. He
got 7 games, too, with the suspension. Do you think it should have been worse for Bacari?
Well, he's put himself in a really bad situation, because they didn't win last year. They're not winning now. You have this now cloud hanging over the program, and I hear some national people are trying to get in contact with Tariq Jones. So I don't think it's gone away, but it's created a very tenuous situation at the university, and for Robert Viles to see what is he going to do next. It'd be nice to win some games, that's for sure.
In terms of how the university handled it, do you believe that they honestly thought that nobody would find out what happened? Because numerous attempts were made to try and gather information, and they gave us the standard line of, look, it's a university policy, we're not going to discuss it. Even after he was returned and reinstated, he even minimized it and said that it wasn't a suspension. So do you feel like the university maybe could have, in hindsight, maybe came out and took more of a more forthright stance and been more forthcoming with what happened?
Exactly, and I think also the family should have made the family feel like they were not going to let a situation like that happen again. You don't text somebody an apology. You go to their house, sit in front of them, say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, please forgive me. So I think they thought that it would be swept under the rug, it wouldn't get out. But you know what? People get offended when you attack family members. Mothers, this guy's mother is very upset. And to think that she's just going to go sit in a corner and be quiet, that wasn't going to happen. And probably the best thing for Tariq Jones is to probably transfer. That's unfortunate, but I just think it's probably going to be best for the kid if he just leaves the program.
Well, Perry, though, do you think there's a chance that Bacari doesn't return as head coach next year at this point?
I just wonder if there's a morals clause in a private university for conduct, that's unbecoming a coach. So that's going to be a tough call by Robert Viles. I think he has 3 years left on his contract. So you're going to have to eat part of that or try to get out of it saying, well, you broke a morals clause, you put us in a bad situation. So I think it's going to be a tough, especially if they lose 20 games again, and then you have a guy that's with both 45, close to 50 losses in 2 years. It could be tough to keep him around.
Well, yeah, only winning 8 games last year, too. I know it was his first year. You're going to have your growing pains naturally. But still, the team could have been and, should have been more competitive last season. So it's not like he's winning games either to kind of make up for the fact that there has been this controversy. So he's really not saving face with the wins that he's accumulated up to this point.
There was some decent talent on that team last year. You had the freshman of the year. You had Chris Jenkins. You had Jaleel Hogan. There's no way that team should have won just 8 games. I mean, something's wrong because you had enough talent to at least go 500 in the Horizon League. Horizon League wasn't that strong. So there's some issues now that are going to have to be addressed because they're 4-7 now, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. And I think there's been some disconnect since the incident, which is going to be hard for him to recapture the guy's respect.
And, you look at Jaleel Hogan now, who had that great game against OU last season, was a great big man for the Titans all year long last season. He's out of shape now, visibly gassed when you watch him play, and that's not a good look for the coaching staff either. And, how much do you believe yourself, Perry, that is a strong reflection of the coaching staff?
No, he was going to lead the program. I think he was going to lead the program, and for some reason he changed his mind, and he's probably months out of shape by not working with the team during the summertime, and it might not be till February until Jalil's in a position where he could be a dominant big man like he was last year. He's undersized, but he was one of the best inside guys in the league, and even Greg Campy at Oakland admitted that. But right now, he's just not in any kind of shape to be the kind of player he was last year.
And you know what? Let's move on now to your career at the Free Press, what you're doing now, writing news stories. So you went from, writing prep sports and other sports-related stories covering the Pistons in the past and other teams to now being a part of the news department at the Free Press.
Okay, I've been in news since February the 6th. Robert Huska and Kevin Bull, two guys who are no longer at the paper, made the stupid decision to put me in news because Kevin didn't have enough respect for me or had enough self-esteem to deal with an older African-American male. So I've been in news since February 6th. I've had 15 1A stories. There's a possibility I may go back to sports. I do my job, and a lot of people could not do what I'm doing, which is make the transition from sports to news. If you ask a news person to go into sports and start writing sports stories, they wouldn't be able to do it. But, I've done my job. I've tried to work hard, and I think that, if I stay there, I'll do my job. If I don't, I need to go back to where I belong, and that's in sports.
Understood. And I know we were going to ask you about the Free Press writers or the Free Press staff that are no longer there. But in terms of the transition, what was different in terms of covering sports now and turning around and covering news? What were some of the factors that had to change or some differences or some things as a journalist you had to adapt to now that you're covering news?
Terminology. I mean, I went from going to events to being in the office at 8 o'clock in the morning and getting off at 3:30. I've been a sports writer for 34 years. I've never had to do that. So I had to cover the Jordan Lewis trial. I'd never covered a trial before. Mayor Duggan's press conferences, just things that I've totally never had to do in my career. And basically I had to depend on the fact that, I'm good with people and I had to ask questions that I didn't know the answer to so that these people would answer my questions. But I think it was very unfair to put me in a position that they thought I would probably fail, where, no, I've turned into success because I've had 15 front-page stories in the newspaper. So basically I had to go from having a real flexible schedule to getting up at 6:30 in the morning, being to work at 8, leaving at 3:30. And it just put a very tremendous strain on my free time because I've never had to sit behind a desk before. I've sat behind a desk since February, long as I've ever had in my career, and my career is 34 years.
And having to wake up early now, that's a transition. I don't know if you did in the past, but I know for me as a guy that's not always waking up very early in the morning, that would be quite the transition for me. And like you said, covering sporting events and just events in general and not having to report to an office every single day, there is a difference there. And I can see that there is for you as well that you're speaking of.
Tremendous difference. Going to courts, going to talking to cops, doing breaking news stories, trying to get police to talk, fire department officials, trying to find missing cats that people are offering $25,000 rewards for. So it's a totally different terminology and work ethic for me. And I think Kevin, who I had zero respect for and still don't, and Robert Huska, who was misguided enough not to ask other people about Kevin, they both made a bad decision, but I turned it into a good one because they appreciate me in news because I work hard every day. I do 3 or 4 stories per day, not a week, per day.
And that's impressive in itself.
Of the 15,
exactly.
Of the 15 1A stories, is there one that you're very proud of or that sticks with you now?
I think the proudest moment I had was I did a story on Zoe Kapaka, and she is in the running for the U.S. Olympic winter team as far as slalom. And so the day I had a front-page story about a handicapped kid on 1A, I had a front-page story in sports about Zoe, which I heard Kevin fought vehemently to put on the front page. So in one day I had 2 front-page stories, one in sports, one in news.
And now, also, I hear that you're also teaching younger students, and your work as a professor. I hear that you got a couple students there at Oakland University that are potentially got some talent or got some things. Do you like teaching younger students the craft of journalism?
I don't like it. I love it. Mm-hmm. I'm at Wayne State. I'm at Oakland University teaching sports writing. And the thing I found out about kids is that they don't read anymore. And it shows in the way that they write. I told my kids, read a couple stories per day. Some did, you could tell, and some didn't. So I'm trying to give them all that I've learned in the 34 years I've been a professional writer. And it's just a joy to see. I got 2 kids from last year who are working now, and I have a young man that I had in Oakland this year who'll be in a position to do some freelance stuff for the Free Press. So I'm very proud of that.
So, Perry, you love teaching. You've taught so many people numerous things, including myself. What is the next thing that you're going to teach me, though? I'm looking for something else. What else can you teach me, Perry, at this point, you think? I
think what people need to realize is that some stories you do to create a relationship with a coach or a player, it might not get 25,000 hits online, and it might not be a Facebook sensation. But the key to this field is relationships and cultivating relationships and having people trust you. And that's what a lot of people don't understand anymore, is that if I can't go to a guy off or on the record and that guy trusts me because he knows I'm good at what I do, or I work hard at what I do, then you'll never get anywhere in this business. And our business is changing for the worse every day.
So besides reading, any other counsel you could give maybe podcasters or up-and-coming journalists?
Do videos on your phone, take pictures on your phone, and read everything that you can. And that's what I tell the kids, read other people's copy so you can kind of develop your own style, because kids just don't read.
Perry, did you see or read Monday night about Kobe Bryant's 2 jerseys with the Lakers, number 8 and number 24, being retired? Because we could talk cats and news and journalism all day, but do you want to talk some sports too with you? I know you've covered the NBA.
Another argument is, should LeBron 6 in Miami and his 23 in Cleveland, are they going to retire those 2 numbers? I'm probably going to say yeah. I just think it's kind of, retire 1 number. Don't put 2 numbers. You got Bryant up there twice. And don't say that he's the greatest Laker ever, because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the greatest Laker ever.
And Magic Johnson was better. Yeah, Magic Johnson was better than Kobe too. I think Magic Johnson, LeBron, and Michael Jordan all better than Kobe Bryant.
Well, Magic said that Kobe was the greatest Laker ever. He wasn't. Kareem was. Let's be realistic.
And Magic was saying that to be nice, right? Probably to stroke the ego of Kobe on his retirement night at Staples Center. I don't even know if he truly believes that. And if he does, his logic is flawed, because I don't believe that he's the greatest Laker of all time either. And once again, Magic's even better than him. And when I look at Kobe, I think he's the closest thing that we've seen since Michael Jordan, because I think LeBron is much more of a Magic Johnson kind of player. What do you think about that?
I agree, and I think Kobe was very selfish. And then let's not forget when he wanted to be traded from the Lakers and had his running feud with Shaq, running feud with Phil Jackson. And I think if he was able to put that ego in check, they probably would have won about 3 or 4 more titles together.
So, speaking of winning titles, I don't think the Pistons are going to be winning anything close to a title anytime soon. What are your thoughts on what you've seen from the Pistons up to this point in the season?
I'm not a big Reggie Jackson fan. I think there's points in the game where, okay, I got to get my shots up, and you can't really think that way as a point guard. And when your defense starts with your point guard and he struggles to do that, then you have problems. And I think, I give Andre credit for working on his game. He got a physical ailment taken care of. He has more energy. But I just think they're missing that one superstar player who can get them over the top. I mean, they should make the playoffs, and if they don't, that's Stan's job to get them there. But they should make the playoffs, and if they're not a top 4 seed, they're a first-round victim again.
Should they start over then? Because, they're all right. They'll make the playoffs probably, but they're not going to go anywhere. And they're lacking that true superstar, which you can get through the NBA draft and at the top of the draft.
I know there's been an argument about that, tank it like Philly did and the process. And now you got Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. And you can say for a fact that Philly's future is a lot brighter than Detroit's. But, do you want to sit there, especially with a half-empty arena now, and lose 55 games? Can you imagine what the LCA would look like if they go like 27 and 55? It'd be like 200 people there.
Yeah.
Now you're in the jam. Okay, do we try to tank it and get a great player, or do we keep trying to be maybe 8 or 9 games over 500 and lose in the first round? That's a tough call.
Very tough. because they're not drawing already, like you said. So to get butts in the seats over there at Little Caesars Arena, it's already hard to come by. So imagine, like you said, if they're losing a bunch of games a year, 50 to 55 games a year, let's say, I don't know how long you can trust the process because people won't be showing up, and they're already losing money, and they're going to just continue to do so and lose even more money if that's the case where they're losing upwards of 50 games a year.
I understand coming downtown, although I didn't really see the merit in it because here you got a facility that's still state-of-the-art. You just put $40 million into it over the last 3 years, and now you just leave it to be a tenant. And that's all the Pistons out there, a tenant in the LCA, their second fiddle in that facility because you want to be downtown as part of the Renaissance. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I think they should have stayed out.
Perry, I appreciate all the time. I'll let you go with that. Enjoy the rest of your vacation, and Merry Christmas to you and yours.
I'll be watching you, Vito.
Sounds good. I know you always will. I don't know how you are, but I know you are watching me. So I appreciate
all right,
that,
too.
too.
Have a good holiday.
All right, you too. And back here on Two Bad Hombres, that was the legendary Perry A. Farrell from the Detroit Free Press, now writing for the news department at the Free. I love hearing his stories. He's always funny, man, talking to me, talking my ear off at games, and I'm talking his ear off. And he's been a mentor to me, a good guy to me, helping me along in the journalism industry, and always looking out for me. I really appreciate that as well from Perry.
Now, Vito, when the news broke regarding some of the ex-staff at the Free Press, the first person I thought of was Perry because I knew what he thought, because the last time he came on, he was just open and said, look, I don't want to do the news. I'm a sports guy, and you can see how professional he is in that he did the job, and even though he was put in that position maybe forcefully, he did a good job. 15 1A articles, and for someone to count him, that means it's important to him that he did the job, and I hope he does return to sports. When you see him around, he's always willing to share information, and it's absolutely right. You got to develop relationships, and he's willing to talk to podcasters, joke around, and things like that. And so I can see that he's taught you pretty well because you're getting some info. You're getting some scoops there in the Free Press. You kind of contributed to a story regarding Tom Izzo visiting a former player, Keith Appling, who's kind of fallen on some hard times. He's serving 1 year in the Wayne County Jail, and you contributed to that report, and I'm proud of you as well. And you've learned. You've done a good job, and you are worthy of being watched by these professionals.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Doc. Finally a compliment from you on these airwaves. But you always try to be complimentary. You stroke my ego, too. I know you do at times.
Whoa, rewind. Any article you've posted, you've known I've retweeted right away.
Oh, you love doing that, and you do that for me, and I appreciate that. You're right.
And I can share with you, every single article that you've penned, whether it be high school schedules or sports stuff, anything you've penned for the Free Press, you've earned at least 2 clicks from me because I've read it, and then I've clicked it just to do it for you. So you get support here from the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Constant
support, and we constantly support Perry A. Farrell, all of his work. He said 15 1A stores. He's keeping track. He cares about that, and we care about him doing well, too.
You can follow him on Twitter at Farrell Perry. Always a presence here on the podcast. We enjoy his conversations. We should dial him up a little bit more, too.
We should, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break to discuss our Christmases, what they're going to, consist of, and what we think we're getting, and what we think these little kids nowadays, are they getting too many Christmas gifts? We'll talk about all of that after this quick break, Doc.
You're listening to Two Bad Hombres on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's Two Bad Hombres podcast is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Two Bad Hombres podcast listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP.
Yeah, we coming now.
And back here on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres, and we have some Christmas-related items now to tend to, as this is the pre-Christmas edition of Two Bad Hombres. And Doc, Merry Christmas to you and to yours.
Same to you, Vito.
Thank you very much. And you have 2 little daughters I got the chance to meet. Now, you did talk about that in the beginning of this week's episode, and they were very nice girls.
What'd you think?
Very nice to me. Respectable, young girls, and really appreciate that they were so nice to me. So you got to tell them that as well. It was very nice to meet them, Doc.
The fun part was anybody that's young, I guess under the age of 10, always likes Vito. I mean, my nephew gravitated towards you. My 2 daughters, 5 and 3, they really enjoyed you there. And funny story, the day of this recording. So my little one, Olivia, she's 3.5. You know what she said? She said, Vito's my grandfather.
Oh, my God. I hope I'm not, is what I can say to that.
Yeah, and my wife was like, no, Vito's not your grandfather. Uncle Phil is your godfather, but Vito's not your grandfather.
So she was getting Uncle Phil confused with me because of the Godfather.
Yeah, a little bit, and you guys kind of look the same a little bit, both Italian dudes, but it's kind of funny.
Small?
No, he's a regular sized dude, and he's been my friend since high school. So it was very fascinating in terms of how the girls because of the fact that I tell them beforehand, and I think you caught wind that sometimes I tell them I'm with you when I'm not because they ask.
Yes, that was
I was
funny.
shocked. I was shocked that she asked because I had no clue. When you tell your kid you're fibbing, at the same time when they call you out on it, it's quite shocking. And I had no idea. My daughter remembered like a lot of times where I say I'm going to go hang out with Vito or I'm going to go do this podcast with Vito. Sometimes I just say things just to leave the house. And
just to get out of the house, pretty much.
Of course. But
that was Madeline. That remembered. Man, a great memory. And you would think you got one past her. Hey, you can't get anything past her, huh?
Can't get anything past her. They were impressed. You came to my house, which was great. So we have a week break in things that you did not invite me to because after our coverage of the Hitachi Basketball Showcase, we went out to the bar, kicked some back, shared a lot of laughs, and it was fun. Me, you, and Nick, we went out, shared some laughs at the Tap and Barrel Grill, had a great time in Shelby Township, threw some beers back. I was a little bit disappointed in that you were kind of keeping it low key. You weren't like throwing them down, and I thought all journalists could drink, and you didn't.
But you still managed to get a picture of me where it looked like I was drunk when I really wasn't.
It was
I like how you still got the chance to capture that picture of me.
It was pretty funny. So, have you got your Christmas shopping done?
You know what? I haven't, and I've got to get on that, but really quick now. To second is something that I wanted to discuss regarding little kids. You have 2 little daughters. Now, is there like a price point for you that you don't want to go past? And I guess when does it become excessive? Because you see all these kids getting all these gifts nowadays, and it seems it's way too many gifts too, Doc.
Vito, the number in terms of what I spent on Sunday when I went shopping, the day after the showcase, I went shopping with the wife. And here's the problem. It's not what you spend on your kids because you can set a budget. Like let's say it's $200, $300, $400, whatever it is. Whatever the budget that you set is fine. But here's the problem. When you start developing relationships, and I know people in journalism say the important thing is to develop relationships. When you got kids, the more relationships you develop, there comes a problem in that 8 people are buying my kids presents. 8 people. And we kind of caught wind of how much people are spending on my kids. So just imagine if 8 people spend $30 on my kid, what do I got to do? I got to in turn spend $30 on them. And I'm like, honey, I came with the budget. And she's like, oh, you got to double that. I said, what? I said, these kids got a ton of stuff. What do you mean? That she goes, ... said so-and-so bought Madeline this, it cost this. So-and-so bought Olivia that, it cost this much. So I got 8 people buying my kids 2 things each. And so I got to basically double the budget that I had kind of allotted for Christmas. And it hurt my wallet, man. It hurt bad. Sunday was not the best day to be messaging me. And I know you were maybe wondering why I was so short and why I was like not responding to all your texts, but I was shopping and I was blowing through a lot of the budget. And,
did you have any money left in your wallet by the end of that gift shopping day?
I spent the budget and a little bit more on PayPal, so a little bit of credit, but PayPal is great, and then it gives you 6 months to catch up. So, and here's a funny story at Toys R Us, which pissed me off, in that I'm comfortable going to Toys R Us and spending anything because I have PayPal and I have quite a bit of a credit line there, so it's pretty good. So I go up and, obviously, knowing that people are incompetent nowadays, I go up to the cashier and I say, is PayPal working? Do you guys still take PayPal? She tells me point blank, it hasn't been working all day. And I said, well, we're going to try it. So went up there, bought all the toys for the kids, about $200 worth, and I went to do PayPal, and it went through. And I had to rub it in, and my wife got mad at me. I said, yeah, I got a big, huge credit line, so that's why I went through. And the girl looked at me, and I was just like, you don't tell someone that, because if someone comes to you and they ask you, do you still have PayPal? And you say, yeah, but you add a caveat that doesn't work, and then I go to use it and it works, obviously the person that was trying to use it maybe doesn't have the proper limit or things were going down, but you don't throw that out there because it made me really nervous because I didn't want to drop $200 more in cash. I wanted to use PayPal. So thankfully it went through, and I was happy to kind of rub it in a little bit and be like, look, be a little bit more professional. Don't come at me all negative right away. But yeah, I spent about, in total, to be honest, $650.
Oh, that makes me sick.
Yeah,
I want to vomit in my mouth.
And you know,
so I got to look forward to that when I have kids.
Let's see
Man.
Let's see. Maybe we'll give you a bonus if you can come within $100 of what what I initially said the budget was. What do you think I told the wife was the budget for? I'm like, okay, here's what I got in my pocket.
I'm gonna say the original budget was $250.
Ding, ding.
Was it really?
That was the budget. I came to the table with $250 in cash. I told her that this is what I kind of want to bring. And she said, ha, 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 go get more. And she knows, I mean, she runs my life, so she knows.
She runs your life. I like that you admit
that. Yeah, she does. No, she runs my life, and she knew what I had in the bank. So so she knew I was trying to keep it. She's like, go pull out.
So she knew that she could get more out of you. And
$500.
You were going to have to spend more money. And she felt all right saying you had to spend more money.
So I went shopping with $500 cash in my pocket. Oh, it hurt too.
And that hurts the pocket.
You know what hurts? When the first place you go, you spend $330. Oh, it hurt, Vito. $330 at Walmart, $200 at Toys R Us.
Already over the allotted amount of money that you wanted to spend for the whole entire day on your two daughters. Yeah. Well, they better appreciate it.
No. It wasn't just for the kids. No.
So for everybody.
For everybody.
So I thought, $650 total for all Christmas gifts that you bought for Christmas this year.
To repay back.
So, okay, so it makes a little bit more sense.
But, Vito, if I didn't have any friends that bought my kids stuff, it would have been $200. I would have been well under budget. My kids, I don't have to spend that much on the kids. But, yeah, they do get too much. Stuff is pricey. Oh, my gosh, man. They got these dolls, these lifelike dolls that are like, $150. They got these gaming systems that are $400. These kids got it good, and I tell my wife all the time, man, if there was only one thing I could go back and do again, I want to be 10 years old again, because PlayStation 4, I don't judge people anymore that want to sit and play, because I saw some of the graphics on some of these games. Holy cow. I saw a setup. My wife's friend has this awesome setup. It's got 3 TVs, got a 70-incher, got the video game set up, and he puts on his Facebook, won't see me today. There are people, Vito. I've never done it. I've never played Madden all day. The most I can do in activity is about 2 hours. You know what I mean? And people are willing to spend 8 to 12 hours playing video games. I have couples that I work with that tell me
they do it at how old? How old are these
30s,
people? They have nothing else to do?
This guy was in his mid-50s.
Do these people work? I mean, when are they doing this, by the way?
On a weekend. They spend their weekend, like how you and I will sit and watch sports for 6 hours and get out and about with the people. There's individuals that will sit and play video games for 12, 15 hours and they'll call up teams and stuff like that. I don't get it. I can't do it.
It's sick to me. It's an addiction. Like you on Twitter, that's your addiction.
Yeah.
And now that's something that that should be a New Year's resolution for you, is getting off of Twitter a little bit more often.
Why? It's a source of income. It helps. It
helps the podcast network. It does help build up our brand, our following subsequently too. So there's something to it. You're right. And you hear of people binge watching Netflix for 10, 12 hours at a time. So at least it's a weekend, though, when they're not working. Like, it's not interrupting their work schedule. And, I mean, if you're doing it, like, at night and losing sleep because of it and then still going to work the next day,
Vito,
that'd be even more ludicrous.
Is there a way to limit what these kids are getting? Is there a way to scale back?
I mean, you have to limit what they're getting, because you're spending way too much money on these kids and they're not even appreciative of what you're buying them. They don't know how to understand, to be appreciative of everything that you're buying for them. And it's too much. They play with one thing for a day, they never play with it again. So why buy all this stuff for them is how I view it, Doc.
You're exactly right. And here's the fun part for me. My kid was 3 years old, and she requested a Frozen castle, which cost $100. And she was super excited, and so we got it for her. But last year and this year, she's gone to see Santa at the mall, and she's asked for a stuffed animal. And it made me so proud and so happy that now that she's gotten older, her tastes aren't that expensive. So
they're cheaper, which you love. Mom and Dad are loving.
Yes, I love that. So my daughter's not a consumer. She's not asking for big stuff. We don't take her shopping all that much for toys. The problem comes for us is that we got so many friends and family that are buying stuff that I really wish my wife would listen to our accountant. You know what my accountant told me? It was amazing advice. Now that I got to practice and I got other businesses, I got an accountant. I got a tax individual that helps me out to make sure I'm not blowing through money and wasting it all on equipment, cameras, and all that kind of stuff. He said, look, tell everybody at birthdays, we'll take care of the toys. We're the parents. We got it. Just give us money for a college fund. And over the course of 18 years, if we started now, my daughter's 5, 13 birthday parties you could imagine. If you just put it in an account that gains money, he's like, look, just tell all those people, just give us money. He's like, I know people don't like to do that, but when you tell everybody universally, if everybody got into that, we'll take care of the toys. They got enough toys. Tell everybody they got enough toys to satisfy them for 4 lifetimes. Tell everybody, just give us a contribution. Don't give us cash. Give us a contribution to this kid's college fund. You'll be doing us a favor. My wife Absolutely not. Offended that I even brought that up. I said, honey, it's a great idea. We don't need to get...
Well, it's financially savvy, and the kids don't need all those toys, endless
But,
toys,
Vito,
right, to play with.
Think about it. If we got 10, 15 family members, 20 family members, and each of them gives $50, that's $1,000 a year.
That adds up, man.
That adds up over 13 years. That's 13 grand. That covers basically a year or two of Oakland University.
But see, you're liking it, but the kids... Your wife is looking out for your kids more than you are because she feels like
we'll get
they're
them
becoming
the presents.
underprivileged,
No,
right? They're not
no.
getting what they should be getting.
No, we take care of that. We go out and buy the toys and presents and wrap them all up and let people see them open it. We take care of that. That's how you be smart, is to open up college accounts or not get all these toys, because in the end, where do they end up? You know that day upsets me is when the Purple Heart comes and we have to donate all these toys because of the fact that the kids we just sell them at garage sales or donate them to Purple Heart. Now, of course, I love donating to underprivileged people through Purple Heart, but the part that stings is I spent all this money and we're giving it away because of the fact that they don't use it. I mean, literally, my kid. Some kids are the same, would take this water bottle and throw it against the wall and be happy.
That's what I mean. You can make stuff out of nothing, and you make games for yourself using little items that are so non-expensive. But I guess that's more of what people growing up back in the day, maybe even you growing up, experienced and went through and were willing to go through in terms of making games for yourself. I don't think that's the case now for these kids. I don't think it typically is, where these kids need to be bought an extravagant, outlandish amount of gifts to be satisfied. But the thing is, then they play with the toy for one day, right? And then they move on from it, and the toy will never be used again. And that's where I know you come into play, moms and dads, and you guys have, you do, I know specifically, have the mentality, well, my kid's only going to use this for a day. He or she's not getting enough usage out of it, so why am I going to buy it for one of my daughters, right? When that's the case with this gift. And that's why, for me, I don't know what the stance you have to take is, but there has to be a line that you draw when it comes to buying gifts.
So you will set boundaries. How much did you spend, basically, in the range of for your family and yourself?
Probably about $100 to $150. I don't have a ton of people to buy for, too, which makes it even easier for myself right now.
Vito, you know what my biggest problem is? When I go shopping for others, I buy stuff for myself.
You'll pile on the bill because you want something, too.
I got the Michigan State scarf. I buy stuff for me. I want to buy a camera. I want to buy nice stuff. I want to buy software for the computer. So that's a big problem, is that, it's nice to buy things for people, but at the same time, you also have to be respectful of the budget and try to keep within reason in terms of what you're trying to do, right?
So what are you asking for, by the way, for Christmas? Do you ask for anything from your wife?
No.
Or?
My wife asked, do you want to go somewhere? Do you want tickets? Do you want anything in particular? I said, no, anything extra, buy it for the kids. I'm now happy seeing the kids smile, have a good Christmas. For me, I take care of myself pretty well. I spoil myself. I'm not one to go without if I want something. That's the problem, is I ruminate on stuff, and right now I'm ruminating on a camera because I really liked what Blair did at the Detroit Sports Media with her camera and taking pictures and stuff like that. So that's the next evolution, is to save a little bit of money. That's what we'll talk about in our meeting after this podcast, about getting some more funds for the network. We're doing okay, but there's always room for growth, and if we want cameras, if we actually want those gadgets. We joked around, me and Blair, when I saw her gadget. I'm like, oh, no, I'll put the money in my pocket. It's better. I don't want all those gadgets. But when you see it, it's
now
it's
you're
cool.
wanting the gadgets.
So before we get out of here, what do you think about this? I think I'm developing an interest in photography.
Really?
I think I like...
Can you perform effectively as a photographer outside of using your phone? Do you know how to use a camera, actually?
No. That's the thing.
There's your problem. Learn from Blair, though, or somebody like that, right?
I asked my wife, I said, look, as I get older, if I want to continue my education, obviously with podcasting and stuff like that, would it be cool if I continued my education and maybe took a class here and there in photography and Photoshop and learning all that stuff? She looked at me when I said it, and she said, psh, this is just a phase. You'll grow out of it. You will never follow through with this. I said to myself, well, maybe what's best for me, maybe I'll get like Photoshop for Dummies and read the book or something like along those lines. I don't think I got time for a class or the money, but I do think that I do like sports photography, and that's another way. You know how I kind of got a little bit of the bug? I don't know if you saw, but at LCA, I kind of got through to the media area, I think in the early second half, and I kind of stood where some photographers were, and I just started snapping some pictures. I just kind of started seeing like how the athletes were positioned, the huddle, the two coaches. I kind of stood in someone's way. They kind of moved me along because I got...
Push you out of the way. See ya, buddy.
Yeah, I got, because they allot the spots for photographers to go, and I was kind of just walking back and forth. that was the funniest thing about going to LCA was security was a little bit light. I mean, they kind of let us do whatever. The funniest part was us just rolling up on some hockey players and just kind of walking right up to them during their line changes. I was telling Jason, I'm like, if I was a parent and you got these two weirdos just kind of walking around with a camera.
I wouldn't find that too permissible, and I would find it creepy maybe too. You got a bald guy, there's a little dude as well. What are these guys doing here watching my kids play hockey? Yeah, a little bit weird right there. I would agree with that, Doc.
All right, Vito. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. I enjoyed the podcast.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you and all of our listeners out there, and to Perry A. Farrell as well, our guest on this week's episode of Two Bad Hombres. Adios for now, and happy holidays.